Thank you, Anna. Can you hear us okay? Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Of course, we had to follow Paul and Kelly, but they're such a wonderful couple. And I just want you guys to know, like, it doesn't look perfect all the time. And, I'm hoping you'll be able to connect with one of the three of us, right? Or a couple in the business that you can look up to, but you're going to have your own journey. And it's going to evolve. So Frank and I, we have our story of when we first started in the business, and we're going to focus there for the next couple of minutes, because I feel like that's where most of you are at, right? Those sort of mixed feelings and right, the conflict and then the excitement and then right? That's a really important part of the business that helps sort of define the rest of your right relationship in the business. But we're at a completely different stage right now, 20 years later, and we're about to embark upon something very unfamiliar. We haven't gone down this road before, but I'll tell you, whatever comes next, we're prepared for it. And much of it is because this business has built sort of a shield around us. And it's sort of like the attempt to have balance in life, which never really happens, causes you to have more balance, right? Just in of itself. I think the attempt to work with your couple and or your spouse and strengthen that couple power inevitably makes it better. We're better for it, right? No matter how difficult it might be or whatever your journey is. So I just wanted to give you guys sort of that grace. It's not always going to look perfect. It's an ever evolving and ever changing thing. And I'm just going to start it off by giving you guys a couple of things to write down that is so, I think, I don't want you guys to get offended by it, but if you need to take it personally, take it personally. An excited, enthusiastic partner can inspire great things in their partner and in their lives. But on the contrary, a negative, discouraging partner obviously does the opposite. And Frank gets to talk about a lot how great of a spouse or supportive spouse he was in the beginning. And he's earned that. But I just want to take a minute and talk about how important that was for me as the associate. Right now we're in business together full time. It's great. But in the beginning, I got to tell you guys, people that come into this business and start full time like I did, or even part time, they need this strength. And the spouse gave that to me. Frank gave that to me. I didn't even know there was a conversation to be had about support. Frank just inevitably supported me. And so in hindsight, I'm so grateful for it because it gave me the courage to take risks. It gave me the courage to get up and do it again when the business isn't always easy. And I just didn't think about it then. I was just blowing and going. But I'm so grateful for it now because I see what can happen if they're negative and discouraging, and what that happens. It just kills the potential, not just in the person, but in the family, right? And what's possible. And then the last thing I'll say, and then I'll let him talk. A negative, supportive, an active, enthusiastic, and committed associate, right? The associate can inspire support. So my being active, my commitment as an associate, we can't just sit back and wait for the spouses to support. Me as an associate inspired support, I hope, right? But just as a lazy, inactive associate will not earn support, will lose it and lose respect. And so I think I wanted Frank to talk a little bit about what his mentality was early on when he just let me that support and what he thought early on. Go ahead, babe.
I was introduced to this company about 10 years before we actually got involved in WFG. And I didn't see my lack of vision didn't allow me to see what the possibilities were. We used to be a practice company called WMA years ago. Let's not get into all that because we're a much better company now. And we've done a lot of evolution over time to become the company that we are today, which is why we're here. When Dana introduced me to the company, she and I had worked together at Prudential. Just to give a little bit of background story, and I'll try to be brief in that. I got a chance to see her ability in some capacity to lead a team. She came in as a trainee. I was running the training program at Prudential at the time.
He was not my boss.
She insisted that I was not her boss, but Matrix, I was kind of her boss, which makes it a little weird, but it wasn't intended to be that way. So we'll skip that part and we'll move on. So along the way, I got a chance to see when she came in and part of the training program, she quickly rose to a leadership role, a team leader type role that was part of the program. I saw her ability to stand in front of a group of people and kind of command the troops and direct and lead and everything else. So I know she had the capacity, right? She had the capability. Part of one of the things that attracted me to her before we got married was that actual, like, you're capable. I don't have to drag you around. I don't have to do everything for you. You can be functional and independent and successful in your own right. You don't need me. But the fact that you have that drive, I know that it's in you. It gives me an ability to now see really the potential in marrying her long term for life, et cetera, blah blah blah. So we got married, and then this opportunity came up. And when we first sat down with Jamie, she finally dragged me to a meeting with Jamie to do the F&A. And we were sitting there talking, and Dana said, I want to do this. And she was doing mortgage before that. She said, I want to do this. And so I knew a little bit about the business. I'm still at employee mindset, but I looked at her and I basically said, if you want to do this, are you serious? And she said, yes, I'm serious. I said, well, I want you to understand one very important thing. This is an entrepreneurial business. It's different than regular like job. If you want it, we'll do it. But you're in. You're not in until it gets tough. You're not in until I don't feel like it anymore. If we're going to run this business and get serious about it, we're getting serious about it.
And he said we, not you.
It was we, because she wasn't doing it on her own. I was working a full-time gig. I just started a new job that I had been wanting for years. I've wanted to get into the industry in a different role in the financial services industry, but I finally got that opportunity and I had just shifted over to it a couple of months before we started here. So I said, you're going to run this thing as the face of it. I'm going to help you on the back end. I'll make all the money I need to make wherever I'm working to try to help cover the things that we need to cover. And we rented office space when we didn't have an income yet. I want to be clear on that. Your commitment level is not, let's wait until I do a couple things and then I'll pay a little more. No, we put our back against the wall and we got to work. And if your level of commitment is that, and that's what I needed to see from her, that was the most important part for me, is her level of commitment to this, because she was capable. She had skills and talents, and she was great with people, and she was smart. She had all the things that needed to be, that she needed to have to be successful. The only thing we never tested her on really was her commitment. And that was what we're going to test. So I told her, I said, I started off by giving her a 6-month window. We can do 6 months. Show me some level of progress in 6 months that makes me excited about it to keep going. When she was talking about the associate being enthusiastic, that 6 months, she had to show me enthusiasm and she was serious about it. Because if you want it, then you got to go get it. As much as you're my wife and I see the potential and all this capability, if you don't take it seriously, why should I? So there's a good balance between the two of us on how that worked. And I worked extra money. And I wasn't making a ton of money. I had to work extra hard to make money, right? And I made more money to help pay the rent at the office, to help pay the expenses of the household and everything else. And she went to work. She got her licenses done over that 6-month period. She started making cash flow over that 6-month period. And all of a sudden, she started to show me what this business can do. Now, she was 100% coachable to Jamie. She was using Jamie's jokes on appointments. Just want you to know that. She was using Jamie's jokes on appointments, which was pretty funny. I said, that's not even funny for you. It must be funny for somebody else. She's like, well, I told Jamie's jokes. Okay. There were times where she'd go out to appointments. Now, I want you to understand what commitment looks like, guys, because I think a lot of people don't really get the commitment side of things. When I say committed, I mean she was out. She was in the field. We only been married 8 months when we got this business, so we were still newlyweds. But we both agreed that we wanted this. If this was really doing what Jamie said it could do, right? You have to listen to the people that trained you and brought you in. If it really is that, I'm 100% with you, Dana. Let's go make this happen. But you got to do your part, right?
Can I just interject very quickly? I think the best part of this for me is when he said I drug him to a meeting. No, I didn't. At least I didn't feel that way. But in hindsight, he was a bit unsure and skeptical, which many spouses are that don't, right? That you kind of inherit it from your partner that came first, right? So he was unsure, right? There was no guarantee. And yet I never saw that. I never saw that side of him. And I want you guys to get this. I never saw his anxiety about the business or lack of certainty about my success. He trusted me. He let me, right, rent office space. He did all of that without any guarantee of success. And that's having faith in your spouse and giving them a shot.
But I'll add to that, because it's not just the faith. It's also, I had to push her. There are times where things got difficult, where somebody quit on her or her client declined her or just like rejected her. There were things where she came home in a negative mindset after being. Now, mind you, when I say commitment, you guys think commitment is like I'm working 8 to 5 every day on Monday through Friday and I'm done. No, Dana was working 12 to 16 hours, 7 days a week. And we were doing that because we wanted to become successful relatively quickly. You can do this the slow way or you can do it the fast way, but she was engaged and committed and working. Jamie was with her side by side. Her leadership was with her. So there was times where they were out till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. And then she would call me. She's like, we're going back to the office. What do you mean go back to the office? It's Sunday night. Well, we got appointments. We got to do this. We're going back to the office. And they were in the process. Jamie was in the process of growing big too. And Dana was one of those catalysts to make that happen. But they worked together. They got back to the office. They ran into illustrations. They prepped stuff for the clients the next day. They had 5 to 6 appointments a day. They were going and going and going. And when they didn't have appointments, they were in the office making phone calls. Like that's commitment. So I'm watching her level of commitment to see what is, I didn't sit at home and go, why aren't you home having dinner with me? I married her. I fully anticipated that she was going to be my wife for life. So I knew she was going to be there. So I was able to suspend my needs or demands to have her around me every 5 minutes, right? When you're newlywed, you like to be around your spouse a lot more. As they get older, not so much. Just kidding. That's trying to be funny. Just kidding.
Happy Valentine's
Yeah, happy. Anyway, so, but the point is I needed to understand her level of commitment. Are you serious about this? I'm 100% supportive of you if you're 100% committed. If you're 50%, it's hard for me to support it because that means I got to pick up slack everywhere else where more than I'm already picking up for you to go out and do this business. And I ultimately learned something. I learned that I missed the very first big event. It was a convention. We had been in the business a month and I missed the first big event. And she came back all fired up, and ignorance on fire, so excited about everything, telling me all this stuff, and I couldn't experience it myself. I had to go to a big event. So I went to the next one, which was a regional meeting in Arizona. Actually, it was a September meeting, and then we did a Wealth Bowl after that. And I remember seeing the size and the scope of what things were happening. I'm listening to what's being told. I, as the spouse, working from the other side, I'm helping hold the household together, and then I get a chance to see what she's doing. Well, it inspired me enough to learn more. Learn some of the words, learn to talk to people, learn to push her when she needs to be pushed. She would come home from appointments frustrated. We would sit down and she would give me the same presentation she just gave some prospective client. And I was pardon my expression, everybody, I was the asshole client that was giving her the hardest time because if she can handle me, she can handle anybody in the field, was my thought. So I'm going to give her a difficult time and she's got to learn how to respond to the stuff that I'm asking. And I was asking hard questions. But I did that practice to, one, learn more about what she's going through, watch how she responds. How can I help coach her through it on my side from the client perspective? She would go back to Jamie and say, this is what Frank told me yesterday. And they would talk about some stuff and they would work through, or this is something that I heard in the field, and she would, get the additional coaching that she needed, but she was fully invested.
I think he was just taking anger out on me those nights when he would role play with me, and I'd be like, I don't know that question yet. I haven't heard that objection ever.
You better know it.
So, that was his outlet, I guess. But if I could just interject very quickly too, I want to say there were moments where, and then we'll wrap up in the next 2 minutes, but there were moments where I did want to quit. And I had Jamie pulling and Frank pushing, and right, it was like they were my source of support. And guys, when you have a supportive spouse and you show them what this business can do, you saw his energy and his commitment evolved over time. Some of you guys are like, let's go now. You got to be supportive now. You got to be full-time now. No, he loved his career. I respected that. So when I say it's ever evolving and changing, there's also a level of patience that has to happen too, right? And then I also just want to show you guys one thing before we wrap up, because it's so important to me, at least to me. But this picture right here, oh, come on. Why does this happen?
Picture's gone, you deleted it.
No, I just can't, it won't let me. Hold on, guys. Hold on.
I see something. I see it.
I know, but I got to get to the picture.
It was like 3
There
bullet
we
points.
go. Nope, here it is. Hold on. This picture speaks volumes to me, because if you can tell, we're on stage at convention, maybe for the first time, and he's looking at me and I'm in all my glory, I guess, right? But this picture allows, like, it showed me how much he wanted me to shine, and he genuinely was happy with our success together, and he allowed me to do that. And I think that's another thing we need to really just hone in on for a little bit. It's okay to let your partner shine. And I think the resistance there is being unwilling to grow, right? Nobody stays the same. Relationships don't stay the same. They change and evolve. And if you don't change and evolve together and you're not in the right environment to do so, that's where friction happens. That's where it can become an issue. And so I'm just grateful that this company, this environment, the leadership has helped us do that. And I just want to say this too, guys.
In that picture, we were top 10 in the company and recruiting in the base shop.
That was your members.
That was at LA.
But here's what happens, guys. It's worth it. And then we'll turn it over to Johanna and Adam, but it is worth it, you guys.
Oh my God.
Yes, we have to kind of wrap
Okay.
up, but I'll give you the last word. We've been to so many places in this world together to strengthen our marriage without our kids. And then, of course, we've been to amazing places with our kids. It makes your life better. This is when Frankie and Lexi were little. And then obviously the picture last year, just to show them evolving and the experiences they have had and the people they've been around. So it is worth it. Whatever you have to endure, it's worth it. I'll give Frank the last word. Take a minute. It's got to wrap up.
Okay. She always rushes me off like I talk too much, but I just think it's valuable to understand the dynamic is when we were growing through the business and evolving, we would continue to have these conversations around what's next. What's our next plan? What's our next strategy? What's our next step? Well, I had been working at a job that I loved for 13 years at that point when I finally said goodbye to my other role. And I got to tell you, we planned it years before that. We were going to hit a certain level. We're going to get a certain cash flow to replace my income, and we're moving. And she had a focus on that, and we had a focus on getting me here permanently full time. And that happened. It had happened years ago. But we're looking at about 8 years now, almost 9 years that's happened. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was the greatest feeling in the world that I was able to walk into, and I love my job, mind you, I love my boss. Everything was cool, but I got a chance to walk into my boss's office in December of 2015 and say, and my boss's name was Chris, and I said, "Hey, Chris, you've been a great boss to me, but you're fired." And he laughed at me, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, I said, "You're fired." He goes, "Get out of my office." So I said, no, I told you when Dana and I reached critical mass, I'm no longer going to be working here at Principal. And I was at Principal Financial Group. So like, I'm leaving. He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "We reached critical mass. You got my 2 weeks notice." And he goes, 2 weeks, that's not going to be enough. And I ended up staying there about 8 more months to help him just for the purposes of building relationships as I'm out the door, always can forward for the people in the office of my clients because of it. But the point I'm trying to make is we didn't start off as couple in the business necessarily together on a day-to-day job, but we were together from the beginning with the language of the business, where I was finding people, I was referring people to her, the commitment level. So the commitments, the working together with respect to prospecting and talking to people, the learning the stuff, going to meetings, learning the words. I had to learn the words of the business so I can speak more effectively to people. All of that stuff can come from any role that you play as a spouse. But you have to remember that you're building this together. And now, especially with the heritage programs, you own the business together. You own it. So as you get to the levels that we're getting to and beyond, and there's the ownership just expands and expands and expands. It's just a great place to be. But you've got to want to build something together that you will own for the rest of your life. Residual income, passive income, active income, and you have the control of your schedule. There's no better place to do it than here, and you can do it together with your spouse. It's fantastic. So
Thank you guys. Hope it was helpful.